Happy Sunday, everyone. I am Jen Greskoff from Girls Soccer Network. Really happy to be here on this Sunday and to present to have Erica Suter Mulholland. She's now just become Mulholland. It's just Erica Mulholland, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and we've been working with Erica for like probably 3 years on and off. Eric has been blogging for us, and we've done a few presentations, and her expertise and knowledge of, this of girls in soccer and um, what their challenges are and how she can help support them. She's really, really just terrific. And so I'd like to, introduce her, and I also just want to just take a second to say thank you to our sponsor, Ida Sports, which is if you guys don't know, they are a footwear company that makes cleats and indoors and turfs specifically for women and girls, and they just launched their youth line. And we've been working with them since we launched. We've been around now almost 8 years, and they were a company that within the first couple of months, I had read about the woman who found this company climbing Mount Kilimanjaro with a group of women to raise awareness about women's soccer. And then she started this footwear brand, and they've really exploded on the market. So, without further ado, though, let's get to the presentation because this is going to be a great one. So, Erica, it's all yours.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the menstrual cycle tonight, and I'm assuming a lot of you in here are moms to young female athletes, which is fantastic because there is not enough education on this topic. I think more and more people are starting to talk about it, and in some ways good, in some ways bad, because there's a lot of misconceptions around the female athlete menstrual cycle. So, before I kick this off, I'm just curious if you all want to just write in the chat, what do you want to learn tonight about the female athlete menstrual cycle? Or maybe what are some of your concerns or questions? So maybe just take a minute to write in the chat. I'm just always really curious, just some of the things you're hearing about it. And Jen, if you have one too, feel free to write. We have a mentor to young women and girls. And unlike friends who are moms, I have time to learn and share. Oh, I love that. Okay. And is it Rachel or Rochelle? Interested in how the cycle is impacted by nutrition. Oh, yes, we're going to talk a lot about that today. And Jen said, are we more prone to injury during this time? Okay, yeah, we will talk about some impacts on injury and performance. Okay, I think that's usually the number one question people have. Is there an increase of ACL tears during certain times in the month or certain phases, which we will go over? Okay, these seem pretty good. Awesome. All right, so I called oh wait, we got one more coming in. Education for a male coach and how to approach the topic with female athletes is if appropriate. Awesome. Yeah, I've given this presentation to male coaching staffs as well, which is great because I think there needs to be some education around it for everyone who works with female athletes. How the cycle impacts injury or flexibility. Rochelle. Okay, got it. Thank you. Okay, perfect. Thank you guys. I appreciate you joining. And again, thank you to Girls Soccer Network and Ida for putting these speaker series on. We are going to do so many more of them, which I can't wait for. And hopefully one day we'll do some live events and see everyone in person. But I titled this presentation, Love Your Hormones, because a lot of female athletes dread their periods and they resent their hormones. And the menstrual cycle can be a very oscillating and roller coaster of a ride. So it's something that I like to approach from a sense of loving yourself, loving who you are as a girls soccer player, and just owning your hormones and letting them work for you and not against you. Whenever I present on the menstrual cycle, I always ask female athletes, I always ask their coaches, I always ask their parents, when we talk about the menstrual cycle, are we practicing true female empowerment? So really think about this because a lot of girls and a lot of coaches will say these common quotes here regarding the menstrual cycle. So some of you may have seen these before. The first one, female athletes are at a higher injury risk because of their menstrual cycle. I hear a lot of girls and teenagers say, oh, PMS is awful, or it's so hard being female, or I hate having a period. Now, are these empowering for our girls? Is this self-talk they're giving empowering, or is us telling them that they're at an increased ACL risk because they have female hormones in a period? No, I don't think so. This isn't empowering. So we're going to stop this altogether and we're going to approach the menstrual cycle in a way that gives our female athletes the tools to reduce injury, perform at their best, even during those icky weeks in the cycle. Okay, so this is just a fact. Menstrual cycles aren't going away. So female athletes are stuck with them. We can't really do anything about it. And most importantly, they shouldn't go away. So the fact that a female athlete has a menstrual cycle means it is a vital sign into her health. So if she has a regular cycle, then that means that she has very good health and she's not getting hindered during adolescence with her growth and development and her thyroid hormone production. I mean, there's so many health consequences that can come when a female athlete does not have a regular cycle. She could also be at an increased risk of overuse injuries, like injuries that shouldn't be happening during the teenage years, like stress fractures or hamstring strains or quad pulls. When she doesn't have that cycle, that injury risk does go up. And she also can be at an increased risk of losing bone mineral density and maybe setting herself up for osteoporosis when she's older. So it's just a whole storm of consequences if she doesn't have that period. So menstrual cycles should be here to stay because they are a vital sign into our health as female athletes. So, our only option, since menstrual cycles are here to stay, is to love our hormones. Okay. And I'm going to go over that shortly, but I do want to get into the 4 phases of the menstrual cycle just so everyone has a background on what's going on during each week of the month. So the 4 phases are the menstrual phase, the follicular, the ovulatory, and the luteal. And a regular cycle should be anywhere from 27 to 35 days. And it's going to be pretty different for every single female athlete. So no female athlete has the same exact hormonal profile. And when I go through these phases, just take them with a grain of salt because some girls feel fine during certain phases. Some girls don't present with symptoms. So again, it's very unique to the individual athlete. Okay, I like to divide the phases into halves. So the first half is days 1 to 15, where the first phase is the menstrual phase. So this is the first day of a female athlete's bleed, and this is when all hormone levels, progesterone and estrogen, are at their lowest. So I like to call it the winter phase because it's kind of that universal time when female athletes might be feeling a little bit tired and they kind of want to hibernate and not really go socialize. Usually, girls report that during those first 1 to 2 days of their menstrual phase, they're just kind of wanting to lay low. All right, on to the next phase is the follicular phase. Now, I like to call this spring because this is when she kind of comes out of her shell and is ready to get outside and socialize. And this is when she releases the follicular stimulating hormone, and then estrogen begins to rise. So those hormones are starting to increase a little bit, which means she's getting a little bit of energy back. And this is really that golden phase of the month where female athletes literally feel at their best. Sadly, the follicular phase is not that long. It is one of the shorter phases in the cycle. So that can always be really frustrating for some girls. But we'll go over tools on how to make it a little bit longer and not feel as bad during those later phases. Okay, so the second half, so days 16 to 30 or 16 to 35. The third phase is the ovulatory phase. So this is when hormones begin to peak. So estrogen and then testosterone comes roaring in. And I think a lot of people think that testosterone is just for men, but us women do have some of it, and we do need some healthy levels of testosterone so that we have that energy, so that we can have good workouts and make strength gains. So testosterone is really important for female athletes to have a little bit of. If female athletes have tanked testosterone, and you can find this out in blood work if you're curious, that is a problem, and that could be a cause for fatigue or slower recovery time. So testosterone is important for female athletes as well. The ovulatory phase, she should still be feeling pretty good just because that testosterone does give that boost in energy. And again, this is also a pretty quick phase. It's usually anywhere from 3 to 4 days when the ovaries release eggs. So it is just very short and sweet, some of these better phases. Now we get into the last phase, the luteal phase. This is infamously known as PMS. So this is when girls start to maybe experience some of those more negative symptoms during the month. And this is the week right before the period comes. So progesterone begins to rise and it begins to peak, and then it quickly drops again just before the period. So that drop in hormones is when she starts to get that fatigue come in again. Maybe even some other symptoms like cramps or slower recovery, maybe muscle soreness, because also during this phase is when protein doesn't synthesize as much in the body. Protein actually breaks down. So that means the muscles are catabolizing, especially after those hard training sessions and games. So it's really important during this phase, especially to up your protein levels so that you can speed up those recovery times. Okay, so here's the recipe for loving your hormones, and I like to divide it into three different ingredients. So the first one is proper training. So if we really want to take advantage of our testosterone levels, for example, we want to be doing consistent strength training. And female athletes who consistently strength train can put on muscle mass, their bodies respond to fatigue better, they can recover faster. So the stronger the muscles are, the less likely they are to break down during those longer training sessions. So strength training, namely, is one of the best things a female athlete can do. And this strength training should be periodized. So if she's in season, she should be only doing strength training 1 to 2 times a week. If she's more in an off-season plan, it should be 2 to 4 times a week. So that's where the next ingredient comes in, is proper load management. So making sure that she has quality training sessions and also enough recovery. So nothing is worse for female hormones than over exercising and overtraining and running your female athletes into the ground. They need those recovery days so that they don't increase inflammation in the body, especially during the luteal phase when inflammation's really high and protein breakdown is really big. So we want to make sure she's taking those recovery days, because recovery is also where the gains happen. So you can't have quality training sessions if you're not rested, if you're not recovered. And we also don't want her over exercising because that can increase cortisol levels and stress response in the body, which is also a whole hormonal storm. It could lead to fatigue, mood swings, even period cramps can amplify. It just becomes a recipe for disaster if these girls aren't recovering. Now, the third ingredient is proper nutrition. So, making sure that she's getting enough of the macronutrients, so proteins, healthy fats, and carbohydrates to support her training. The last thing we want for her is to overtrain and underfuel because that's when the muscles break down even more. So if that nutrition and that caloric intake is not matching that energy expenditure, then she's just overtraining at that point and she can risk injury. Now, a lot of people will say, well, do periods cause ACL risk? Well, my question to you is, how would they cause ACL risk? Just write in the chat. I'm really curious why you think periods would cause ACL risk. Let's see what you guys say. Okay, someone said link between flexibility and hormones. I've heard that one. So I've heard joint laxity is higher during the luteal phase, but not for every female athlete. But we do know from research that something, actually one of these ingredients here, improves joint laxity and improves flexibility and improves stability of the joint, especially the knee joint. Which one of these improves the stability and integrity of the knee joint? Strength training. Okay, so there's our solution. Okay, so if female athletes fear their joints being more lax during the luteal phase, they need to be strength training. They need to be strength training and building those muscles that safeguard that knee joint. That's the only solution. Menstrual cycles are here to stay, remember. So we have to give our girls very actionable solutions that they can implement consistently. Okay, anyone else? Why else would ACL be increased during the period? Any guesses? So some other people have said fatigue could be the cause, but we know that when we have recovery and then we also have strength training, that helps with our muscle ability to handle fatigue better. So it either way, it always brings us back to these three. It brings us back to proper training, load management, and good nutrition. Improper form, there's not enough studies on biomechanics and how they're impacted during different phases in the cycle. But if people are concerned about biomechanics, again, it comes back to making sure all the muscles are strong and not just the lower body. The whole body has to be balanced. And if the upper body is weak and the core is flimsy and unstable, then yeah, that could impact knee valgus and knee torque. So we want to make sure we're training the shell that is the entire body. So again, it always comes back to these three. It always comes back to these three. But people still want to tell female athletes, oh, well, you have cycles, ACL risk. But it's like, no, I want to give them solutions. I want to empower them with strength and getting in the gym and having off days and periodizing their load and eating healthy foods and getting enough calories because that's going to give them energy. That's going to give them good form. That's going to make them resilient to injury. It always comes back to these. So, Rochelle, great question. Gosh, there's so many factors in ACL risk. I could probably do like a 3-hour presentation, but it could be a weakness in so many different muscles. It can be a weakness in hamstrings. It could be even a quad weakness. It could be a calf weakness. It could be instability in the core. It could be anything, which is why for girls soccer players, we have to balance out the whole body. And even not just for injury prevention, but we want more muscle mass on the whole body because it helps with speed and explosiveness and just improve performance in general. And there's a really good sports scientist at UNC women's soccer right now. She's one of my good friends. Her name is Elena, and she's doing her PhD study in body mass and body composition impact on performance. And the UNC women's soccer team during this past season, they added 10% of muscle mass from the beginning of the season to the end of the season, and they had no season-ending injuries this year. So there's really something to be said about improving all muscle mass for girls soccer players. And I mean, I think that solution's more empowering again. It's more badass, I think. Okay, this is kind of my symptom cheat sheet because there are ways to make these symptoms better. And these are just universal ones from the studies that female athletes report. So bloating, cramps, digestive problems, mood swings, fatigue, and lack of focus, and then decreased muscle recovery. And let me tell you, it is totally possible to get rid of negative period symptoms. It is absolutely incredible the power of nutrition, the power of recovery and sleeping for female hormones. Even I will even say this because I'm about to turn 40 in the next few years. Even for menopause, perimenopausal women, nutrition is key, and you don't have to go through negative symptoms then either. So, but that's a whole other topic. These are just some of my cheats for mitigating these symptoms. So for bloating, cramps, any digestive issue, magnesium supplements are really great. It's probably one of the only supplements I turn people to, or at least tell people to consult with a dietitian for, because not a lot of female athletes eat magnesium rich foods. You would have to eat a lot of like dark chocolate and spinach. But some people would just prefer to supplement, which is totally fine. Probiotics as well can really help. Also, kefir, which is a great probiotic yogurt drink, is really great. And then also making sure that during their recovery days, they're still moving, but it's in a low impact way just to get the digestive system working. So, walking is a great peaceful activity to just ease the digestive system. Now, for mood swings, the first thing, and this is the one that always works like a charm, is for girls to decrease the sugars. And I'm talking like when girls are over consuming sugar, that becomes a problem during maybe the luteal or menstrual phase when inflammation's really high. We don't want to add to that inflammation with junk food and high sugary food. So some girls might need to decrease that sugar, and wow, they feel better. They don't feel as emotional, or they don't feel like they're having mental health problems during this time. I have a lot of girls that said they've made this one change and it's like night and day. And then the second change, so they increase protein. So when you decrease something in your diet, you have to increase elsewhere. So I always tell girls, increase the protein then, because you still need to get your calories in. So increasing that protein is also really good for brain health and emotional health and regulating emotions. So if girls have like a protein shake or chocolate milk during this time, that is amazing as well. Also getting vitamin D3 or sunshine. You can get vitamin D from sunshine. Very good for your mood and energy levels. And a lot of girls that I work with who've gotten blood work done are very deficient in vitamin D. And that's because a lot of them spend the whole day in school, they're not in the sun, and not a lot of them are eating a lot of dairy products or a lot of eggs or a lot of salmon. So some girls do need a supplement with a vitamin D3. And this is probably the hardest one for my girls is decreasing social media usage. But social media, when girls are constantly looking at their phones and they're constantly stimulated, they become very impatient people. That constant stimulation is not good for your nervous system because you always feel unsafe and you're in fight or flight. So that only amplifies these mood swings more during the luteal phase. So decreasing social media usage, it works. I've done it myself. It's absolutely incredible. Let's move on to fatigue and lack of focus. So fatigue could be a cause of injury. So how do we combat that? So you can increase your iron levels, whether it's through increasing red meat maybe a couple more times a week or taking an iron supplement if you don't opt for the red meat. You can also up healthy fats. Now, healthy fats are really great for your brain because your brain's made up of fat. So things like butter or salmon or olive oils or coconut oils, those are your healthy fats. I always tell girls embrace the fats, but I'm not talking like embrace your brownies. I'm talking your whole food fats that are really high in omega 3s that also give you energy and calm inflammation. For this one, I also say decrease social media usage again, and then also just having a sleep routine. So just making sure these girls are getting to bed at the same time every night. They're staying on top of their homework. They're not procrastinating so that they can get to bed at a good time. So it's really important they have that sleep routine because sleep is also where muscle recovery happens and where protein synthesis happens. So and that's really important during that luteal phase when protein breakdown is really high. Okay, and the last negative symptom is decreased muscle recovery. So some girls might report they feel more sore right before their period, or they can't bounce back from a game fast enough. So again, really upping the protein that week and upping calories and healthy fats as well, just to really decrease that inflammation in the body and improve that repair of the muscles. And then also maybe if you're doing a lifting workout, increase the rest times in between sets. So with lifting, we don't really want to change the program around the cycle because we do have to adapt and we have to continue to progress. But I like to be more proactive by just allowing girls to have longer rest times. So if we're doing pull-ups, if they need an extra 2 minutes in between sets, that's totally fine. But I don't want to sit them out of pull-ups because we want to stay on our gradual progression. And again, we want to empower them. I think a lot of people think the load management is sitting people out of things, but I think it should be working with our athletes to empower them. So we want to increase those rest times. Also, foam rolling is really great for girls. It helps to loosen the muscles and it's really good for the nervous system and makes them feel like their muscles are getting stretched out. So there's a mind-body component to foam rolling. And then also cold therapy decreases inflammation. So like your Normatec boots or even just hopping in a cold shower. But I know not all girls want to do that. So maybe the Normatec boots are a better option. So these are just some um, tips for solving these negative symptoms. And for me personally, I always like to tell my story with my symptoms. When I was in high school, I had bad cramps, but it started to get really, really bad when I was in college. And it was to the point where those first few days of the period, I didn't want to get out of bed. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I was in so much pain. And then finally, in my 30s, I realized that nutrition could get rid of my symptoms altogether. And now I don't experience any of these symptoms. So it is possible. And that's why I like to share this with everyone because I think a lot of girls think they're stuck with this because they're females and they just have to deal with it and suck it up. But there's so many nutrition tools, there's so many recovery and training tools to really help them with these symptoms. Oops. Okay, just to recap, I always like to tell girls, look, being female is a blessing. It's amazing to have your menstrual cycle. It makes you powerful. It makes you who you are. So love your hormones and nourish your body. Don't overtrain because overtraining is the enemy of female hormones. And make sure you get enough recovery because that's where the gains happen. So, thank you guys. That is it for my portion. I'm going to stop share because I want to just have you guys write in the chat if there's anything new you learned from this or if your perspective changed about the menstrual cycle. So, what did we learn? Oh, Rochelle said, um, oh yeah, I remember this. So, Tony Presley was criticized for having too much muscle mass on her legs. Yeah, I think anytime a coach talks about a female body, it's very problematic, especially if it's something that actually helps with performance and health. I mean, I've known many female athletes to get that criticism, especially Serena Williams as well. She was blasted for having like huge arms and huge legs, but let's face it, she's the best tennis player to ever exist in women's tennis. So that says a lot. Yes, Ian, this is being recorded, so you'll have the cheat sheet. And trust me, it is so helpful. I can't emphasize the importance of that nutrition enough. It does take time. Don't expect it to resolve overnight. It probably took me around 3 months to start noticing good changes in my symptoms. So it's something you just have to be consistent with for life. Even now that I'm not playing, I'm like, man, like I feel like I can still go to work and crush it during my luteal phase. Like it just doesn't, I just look down and I'm like, oh, like periods here. And then I just go on with life. Like, sorry, TMI, but I just get excited because like I don't really have symptoms because of the lifestyle changes. Rochelle, yeah, it's not just hormones. It's we're because we're always going to have hormones. We need to have estrogen and progesterone and testosterone for our health. So our only option is to become strong, be well recovered, be our most nourished and hydrated selves. That's really female athletes' only option, and I think that's an empowering option. Never TMI. Awesome. Let's see. Oh, that's a good question. Do athletic girls get less cramps than girls who are sedentary? I've heard that too, Jen. Yeah. I I think exercise is just such a powerful thing. And I think a lot of our female athletes are at an advantage because they are training and being active or doing their strength training. I've heard that as well. Another symptom I forgot to put on here that's pretty, I would say it's important to young girls because it can cause a lot of insecurity, but is acne, like especially around the luteal and menstrual phase. Some girls tend to get a lot of acne like on their chin or jawline. But again, like that was one thing that nutrition really resolves, especially for me. And like when I say decrease sugar and junk food, it is a very magical thing for skin health. So if girls are insecure about something like that, I mean, I'd say it's worth it to decrease some of those foods and up more of your healthy foods because like skin is an inside out job. And I don't think a lot of girls are learning that in school. They're not learning that on TikTok because all these people are selling these like stupid skincare routines with expensive products. But it really is nutrition. And then your nutrition also helps with your sport performance and injury reduction. So it's a win-win. Feel free to share with your girls' teams or their parents and get the word out because I think a lot of people have misconceptions about the cycle and injury and performance. And maybe next time you hear someone blaming it on the hormones or saying girls are at an increased risk, be like, no, 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 no. they need to strength train, they need to eat well, and that's going to give them a fighting chance. So, um, yeah, feel free to let them know. Irregular periods are pretty normal when a girl first starts. So when a girl gets her first period, say that's at age 14, for example, it takes a year to 2 years for the period to settle in and become regular, as in every single month. So don't freak out. Don't freak out, especially if she's not 16 years old, because it does take time to settle in as she matures into an adolescent. But if your female athlete is older than 16 and we start to become upperclassmen in high school or college players and the periods are regular, meaning it comes every few months or several months, that's a red flag. So that's what I'll say about that. Usually irregular periods at those older ages are caused by number one, not eating enough. So not having enough calories to match all of the trainings, all the practices, all the skill sessions. So I recommend working with an RD to figure that out. And then it could also be like a nutrient deficiency, which you also work with an RD as well. And they usually have you order blood work with your physician to see what some of the underlying causes are. But um, yeah, usually it's nutrition. But if she's not 16 yet, don't freak out. Yes, I have had experience with endometriosis and PCOS. So those are also nutrition issues. I do have a nutritionist that I really like. So if you want to shoot me an email, I can always refer to her. But yeah, usually PCOS especially could be a blood sugar issue and some other deficiencies. So it could be an over-exercising issue too, or high cortisol. I mean, there's many things that go into PCOS. So I'll just drop my email in the chat if you want to email me and have any further questions. But PCOS is absolutely reversible. One of my best friends just reversed her PCOS through lifestyle and nutrition. Very amazing story because she was really struggling. She didn't have a period for a year. So I'm happy to help. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.